As you probably know, I turned 75 on May the 14th, and that means I will be ushered out of here either ceremoniously or unceremoniously.
Chill, Karen.
Release the hounds.
I don't sus.
For real.
How is that sus?
Because you're old.
I'm old.
Weren't you born in like the 1900s?
What? That doesn't.
Aren't you like 50? Yeah, boomer.
Look, Miss Girl.
I thought it was a boomer, and now I'm a Miss Girl. You know what? None of this matters.
Chill, Karen.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Tough week in Canadian federal politics for the Conservatives, man. Poilievre went down, lost his seat. Michelle Ferrari, Dr. Ellis, Rick Perkins. Big disappointment, man. And it gets worse. Senator Donald Plett is aging out. Like 75 is the age limit for the Canadian Senate, and they're pushing him out. Most people are ready to go when they're 75. Donald Plett is not. This guy is still really sharp.
Hi, sorry, excuse me. Do any of you guys happen to have a phone I could borrow?
Don't you have a phone?
I do. Thank you for asking. It's dead, so if I could use one of yours, that'd be great.
Sorry, we don't have any.
None of you guys have a phone.
Nah.
I literally just saw you guys filming TikTok dances like 3 seconds
You
ago.
were watching us?
By the Senate rules, which are fair. Just sucks when you see a good one have to go. Here's his salute. Cpac doesn't even give him titles. We'll put titles in for this guy. Cpac, you suck.
Well, thank you very much for that warm reception. I want to thank everybody that took the effort to be here today. I thank you. As you probably know, I turned 75 on May the 14th, and that means I will be ushered out of here either ceremoniously or unceremoniously. But I must leave the Senate of Canada as prescribed by the Canadian Constitution. The Senate has been idle since last December and will not reopen before I leave. The Speaker of the Senate, Senator EhrenEmm, has graciously allowed me to use the Senate chamber to make what will be my farewell speech, and I want to thank her for that. And since I did not want to speak to rows and rows of empty chairs, I invited senators and Senate staff, administration staff, etc., to join me here today. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank especially the senators that are here today that took the time to come out, both current senators, past senators, and newly appointed senators. I hope that all of you will be able to join me and us in the Senator's Lounge later on. Some call it the Air Canada Lounge, just on the second floor, and we will be having a few glasses of wine, and I encourage and invite all of you to join me at that time. As I enter the twilight of my career, I want to share with you some highlights of this career and some thoughts on the past and the future. So I started to get involved in politics with my father. He was a member of the Progressive Conservative Party, both provincially and federally. He was a municipal councillor, town councillor, eventually the chair of the town council, the equivalent of the mayor of my small community. He gave me the political bug and taught me that you needed to get involved if you wanted change. That was a lesson I learned for the rest of my life. You cannot stay on the sidelines if you want to have an impact on the game. And that is why I also joined the Progressive Conservative Party. Then after a few years of our families fighting with each other, the Canadian Alliance was formed. and I decided that it was time to join the movement to unite the right. Canada had turned into a one-party state, and we needed to build a credible alternative to the Liberals. I note that sadly we have more or less returned to this, entering a fourth consecutive Liberal mandate, but I will come back to that later. So in the year of 2000, I and others helped recruit the Honourable Vic Taves to run in my riding of Provencher. Vic asked me to manage his campaign that year, and we won handily, beating a very popular Liberal incumbent in the riding of Provencher. But I felt that the national campaign had not been managed properly. Again, I decided that I had to do something about that, so I decided to run for the National Council of the Alliance Party. I was elected the same day that Stephen Harper became the leader of that Alliance Party. And Mr. Harper convinced me to accept the position of president of the party about a half a year into that mandate. So when the deal to merge the PC party and the alliance was struck, I was again tasked with going from riding to riding to riding across the country to sell the merger to both camps. As a former staunch Brian Mulroney progressive conservative and then president of the alliance, I was respected by both camps. As president, I made sure to visit as many ridings as possible and to meet as many members of the party as possible. These are still some of my most precious moments in my political life. That gave me the understanding of how the political system works and what the issues are that Canada is facing, along with a chance to meet Canadians from coast to coast to coast. This is one of the points that I would like to leave with you. If you want to improve things, you need to get involved. If you want change, how your town, your province, or your country is run, get involved in politics. Like me, you will meet extraordinary people. You will learn about your neighborhood, your province, your country. It is an experience like no other. Another message I want to leave you with is that in Canada, our institutions are open to all. I was a plumber from southern Manitoba. Within a few years, I became the president of the party that formed the government of Canada. I sincerely hope that our political parties remain open to all and that you do not have to be part of the elite, to be a multimillionaire, to rise in the political apparatus. It is something that makes Canada special, and we need to keep it this way. If the only people who can become Prime Minister are those with Harvard diplomas and trust funds and tax havens, then we will be worse off as a country. Having contributed to the merger in 2003 of the Canadian Alliance and the PC parties is certainly one of the highlights of my career. This has united the right-of-centre forces in Canada and allowed us to win elections, at least until 2015. So when Prime Minister Harper asked me in 2009 to represent Manitoba and make sure the voice of ordinary Canadians is heard in the Senate, I was thrilled and happy to accept. I want to thank Prime Minister Harper for the trust that he put in me. The last 16 years were an extraordinary experience. It truly has been an honor to sit in this Senate. And I have to say that I am proud of the work that we have accomplished. I was appointed when the Senate was secretive and managed like a private club. Under the leadership of the Conservative majority, the Senate started to disclose the expenses of each senator, made the debates accessible through audio first, then television, opened the Cpac meetings to the public. Conservative senators were instrumental in revamping our ethics code and addressing in a thoughtful and equitable manner the recommendations of the Auditor General in 2015. And those are only some of the changes made by the Senate Conservative majority. Between 2012 and 2015, several other administrative rules and policies were modernized, making the Senate more transparent and more effective. I was a proud sponsor for several government bills, most notably the bill to open the wheat market for Western farmers. This bill has created tremendous growth in our agricultural industry. In fact, I was the Senate sponsor of every agricultural bill that was tabled by the Conservative government from my appointment in 2009 until 2015. 7 government bills. I am extremely proud of the work I have done on the prompt payment file. Bill S-224. This bill sought to ensure proper, timely payment for the construction industry in Canada. I, of course, had worked with the construction industry most of my life. I worked in collaboration with various tradespeople in introducing this legislation and moving it forward. And eventually, I worked across the aisle with Liberal MP Judy Sgro. Having myself worked in the trade, I saw the importance and value of getting this legislation over the finishing line to ensure the fairness for tradespeople. And Judy took the same approach, and we put partisanship aside and worked on behalf of the trades in our country. Of course, and to my chagrin, you can imagine that a large part of my tenure in the Senate was spent on the opposition benches. However, I am also proud of the work that we did as an opposition in the Senate. I truly believe we always brought thoughtful but spirited opposition to the government. We have always been respectful of the right of the elected government to get its way, but have always insisted on our rights to fully debate legislation and to challenge government in debate in committee or at question period. I know some of our adversaries in the Senate feel that sometimes we are obstructing. But I ask you, with about 10% of the votes here, how can we really obstruct? Since 2015, the Conservative caucus in the Senate has used all of its levers to carry out the voice of the millions of Canadians who support our movement, and of the millions more who simply do not support the governing Liberals. This, friends, is the essence of democracy. This chamber is a place for debate, where different points of view in Canada collide. I have always believed that parliamentary debate is the civilized way of dealing with disagreement amongst voters. When Canadians know that they have representation who will be their spokespersons here and in the House, they are less inclined to take to the streets. That is what we are here for. I have been a senator for close to 16 years now, but I still get a lump in my throat when I entered the chamber, knowing the responsibilities that we collectively have, knowing the impact our debates and our votes have. But before I leave this place, I want to share with you a few thoughts about the institution. Some people would like to revisit history and make us believe that the Senate of Canada had some kind of a rebirth in 2016 when Justin Trudeau started appointing senators. Nothing could be further from the truth. The real changes in the Senate had already happened, as Conservatives and Liberal senators worked together to modernize the institution. As I said, the real modernization of the Senate happened between 2012 and 2017. This is when we went from a secretive private club to a modern and open democratic institution. The Senate has been here since 1867. It went through numerous crises and changes. As soon as it was created, some people clamored for its abolition. Reducing the evolution of this institution to the last 10 years is dishonest. As is normal, the Senate will have its ups and downs. It will have its share of crises, and will continue to evolve, as will Canada. But evolving does not mean throwing out the proverbial baby with the bathwater. And I feel this is what Justin Trudeau and some of his supporters in the Senate have done. For those of you who still aren't sure how I feel about Justin Trudeau's Senate, let me be clear. I hate it. But let me also be clear, not the senators, the system. Very clear. I've traveled with many of you. We've worked together, and all senators appointed under the Constitution are legitimate. All of the appointments under the Royal Proclamation of 1867 have been done in the same manner, the exact same manner. The Prime Minister advises and recommends to the Governor-General, who appoints the senator. So the idea that because some people have been vetted by a former judge and a couple of other members of the Canadian elite, they would be more legitimate than the hundreds of other appointees that came before them is ludicrous, as it is equally ludicrous the other way. Justin Trudeau's appointees to the Senate are all legit. For the large majority, I would suggest all that I have met are decent, hardworking individuals who want the best for our country. That is what we're here to do. But quite frankly, they have been given an impossible task: steer an institution that was made intrinsically flawed by the former Prime Minister himself. I could go on for hours, and many of you have heard me go on for hours on this, on the flaws of the Justin Trudeau Senate reform. I will focus on 5 of these flaws. First of all, the most pernicious of the changes brought in by Trudeau is the restriction imposed by his senators to join political caucuses. This is wrong for 2 reasons. First, the Liberal Party lost the ability to draw from this great wealth of knowledge, experience, and regional views. Let me take the example of Saskatchewan. Since 2019 and until Monday, the Liberal Party did not have an MP from the province of Saskatchewan. And even Monday, they elected only one, but they had none. I believe the Prime Minister made a mistake by refusing to add senators from Saskatchewan to his caucus. It would have been better for the Liberals, who would have had a voice in their caucus from that province. And it would have been better for Saskatchewan to have had that voice in the government caucus. The Trudeau government always insisted they were appointing senators who had distinguished careers and who were great defenders of causes. Then why are they shutting the door on their caucus to these great luminaries? Secondly, it would be better for all senators if they could fully participate in the caucus process. In the Conservative Party, your participation in caucus is not just attending the Wednesday morning meetings. You can participate in the evaluation of legislation through caucus committees. If the Trudeau senators had been invited to fully participate in the political process, they would not have had to wait for a bill to come to the Senate floor before suggesting amendments. They could have done so before the bill was introduced. we would have saved time. We would not have had countless declarations from the government leader that this amendment may have been a good idea, but it is now too late in the process to entertain it. Sober second thought is not necessarily done once a bill has been adopted by the House of Commons. It is much more efficient when done during the drafting of the bill. But Justin Trudeau has forbidden his appointees to do this. I insist on this point. We are told that the Trudeau system gives us senators that are the smartest Canadians. So why not get their expertise on legislation through the caucus process? In 1867, the first senators decided to join political caucuses. Until 2016, 99% of the senators joined political caucuses when appointed. They did not have to, but they did. They made the right choice. The Canadian Senate is the only democratic House of Parliament in the world where the majority of its members do not represent a political party. There is a reason for this. Only Justin Trudeau has made that mistake. Hopefully, new Prime Minister Mark Carney will, on that issue, like so many others before him, distance themselves from these failed policies. The fact that senators, other than Conservatives, are no longer part of a coherent political movement has another direct negative effect. It is true that being a member of a caucus means that you have to make some compromises on legislation. But what binds the members of a caucus is a certain outlook on how the government should operate. You can guess how a party will vote on most bills. Not because their leader decides on a whim that today it is yea or nay, but because you know what the party stands for. But in the Senate, who knows what the groups stand for other than Conservatives? In fact, all three other groups pride themselves in the fact that they really do not stand for anything. Reminds me of the saying, when you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. Look at the names of these caucuses or these groups. There is a group that is more Canadian than the others. One that is more independent than the others. One that is more progressive than the others. These groups do not have a cohesive political or policy platform. They strive to be one of the teams of the debating club that the Trudeau senator has become. They could be named A, B, C, or yellow, purple, beige. It would not make a difference. Let me confess to those that don't know this, senators do not read all the bills and all committee testimony or submissions before voting. It would not be feasible. We rely on our colleagues who are subject experts and have participated in committee meetings to inform us on what a bill is about. In a political caucus, you know you share the same values as your colleagues. But in a Senate group, what do you share other than resources and a weekly meal? You are not bound by a political philosophy or a platform. The cement of the team is not shared values. Your only link with others is your membership in the team, just like a debating club, a volleyball team, or a book club. Of course, you develop friendships with members of your team. Actually, that will be the strongest bond with your fellow group members, friendship. So on issues where you don't have a strong opinion, your compass is how your friends vote. As a result, we have seen in the last 9 years a shift in how votes are decided. It is no longer partisan, it is personal. You don't vote for a bill because it reflects the values of your political movement. You vote for it because it is drafted by a colleague you like. You don't vote against the bill because you fear it would be detrimental to Canadians. You vote against it because it is a bill that comes from another group. You don't vote for a bill because it is supported by millions of Canadians. You vote for a bill because it is supported by cool senators. You don't vote against a bill because it is opposed by stakeholders. You vote against a bill because Senator Don PLETT spoke in favor. Recently, a colleague said he was supportive of a bill I was defending. But he asked me very seriously how he could support a bill since I raised my voice in debate. This is how deep his convictions are. It is not the arguments that matter, but the tone that they are made with. Too often, senators, myself included, forget that we are acting on behalf of 42 million people, not our little selves. Our decisions will impact the lives of real people, real Canadians. Your guide in deciding how to vote should be how this will impact Canadians, not how this will impact your friendship with other senators. Let me be clear, the 100 senators appointed by Justin Trudeau are all good people. They all love their country. They are all passionate. But they are put into a system where their talents are undervalued. They are not supported. They are left alone to play what is a team sport. And their eagerness to form groups, develop friendships with colleagues, creates what I think are negative distortions of the functioning of the Senate. Since senators are left to themselves, they work on personal projects. And this is why we have seen a record number of Senate public bills in the last few years. Senators insist on having their personal bill not only debated in the chamber, but studied at committee. This means that the Senate can no longer focus on what made its reputation: thorough committee studies that help shape future public policy. Instead, committees spend their time studying the bills introduced by individual senators. And more often than not, these studies show that the stakeholders have been consulted properly prior to the tabling of the bill, that unintended consequences have not been considered, or that the bill has been poorly drafted. The consequence of this is that the transformation of the Senate into a debating club is accelerated. Another feature of this Trudeau Senate, or another ugly side, I should say, is this lack of depth shown by some senators since 2015 when choosing their own groups. Members of Parliament or senators leaving a caucus is not a new thing, friends. It's happened, it's been there since 1867. But the number of changes in affiliation in the Senate in the last 10 years has exploded. One of our Senate colleagues actually sat in 4 different groups. This is because of what I just spoke about, the absence of a coherent political philosophy behind each group. There is no problem going from one group to another, because jumping from one group to the other has nothing to do with your personal values or political views. In this so-called new Senate, the choice of a group is based on I like this person or I don't like that person. I even heard that the size of the office offered by a group was the clincher for one senator when choosing his new group. Even worse, some senators not only left their caucuses, but they then started working actively to kill former caucuses. This, friends, is how the Liberal caucus disappeared in this chamber. Was pushed by both Senators Harder and Gold and supported by too many. The Senate hit a new low last year when it adopted, under time allocation, changes to the rules to restrict the powers of the opposition. Before Senator Gold became the leader of the government, changes to the rules had never been the object of a government motion without consensus of the opposition. When he used his government majority to unilaterally change the rules, Senator Gold went too far. It was a sad day for the Senate and for Canada. Those who wanted to turn the Senate into a Liberal echo chamber may get their wish someday, but for the moment, thanks to the hard work of our small Conservative caucus, we have managed to save a place for an organized opposition. Justin Trudeau managed what could not be done for 150 years. He killed the Liberal Party in the Senate, but he could not kill the Conservative Party. I am, of course, deeply saddened by the results of the election of April 28th. Elections have consequences, they say, and for this election, one of those consequences may be that the existence of an organized opposition in the Senate is once again challenged. I sincerely hope that is not the case. This would be, I believe, the death knell for the Canadian Senate. I urge all senators and all members of the House of Commons to reflect on this point. How can a Senate continue to represent the spectrum of opinions in Canada if all senators support the government? What should be done to prevent that? So, in conclusion, as far as the Senate is concerned, let me summarize what I think the institution should do, and I urge the Carney government to work in this direction. First, the Senate has to go back to having groups linked to MPs' caucuses. These links could be strong or loose. But if it ceases to be part of the political debate, the Senate will become a private club of 105 individuals who debate in the abstract or are focusing on their personal projects. You have to wonder why the Canadian taxpayers should fund such a debating club to the tune of $140 million every year. Secondly, the Senate needs an organized opposition group to represent those who do not support the government. Otherwise, the Senate will truly cease to play its role as a democratic institution. Let me finally note that in their haste to change the rules, sometimes just for the sake of changing the rules, the other senators did not measure all the consequences. I have been told time and again by other senators, but we did not know that this change would result in this outcome. This is one lesson I hope that all of us, present and future, remember. Rules are there for a reason, and changing them without proper reflection will cause more problems. Changing the rules of the Senate should be, as it should for an institution that prides itself on sober second thought, done carefully, and should be based on consensus. The Senate is not the only place where Justin Trudeau created a mess. Last year, I started a series of speeches on incompetence and corruption that characterized the Trudeau government. I had already spoken for hours before prorogation, and I still had hours to go to cover all the problems that were left behind by the man who I believe will be remembered as the worst prime minister in our history. And I know you're all looking anxiously for those speeches. Inflation, no economic growth for 10 years, incompetence in every department, a depleted military, a drug epidemic, rising crime, Canada alone on the international stage, the attacks on duck hunters and sport shooters, the refusal to exploit our resources. The list of failures is too long to go through today. For 10 years, we had a government that was too lazy and too fearful to take on the challenges that we have faced. Under Justin Trudeau, the Canadian government gave up on working on the root of the problems. It was only a PR exercise, making announcements that never produced any concrete results. The other part of the Liberal strategy was to divide and conquer. They made sure to pit Canadians against Canadians, vilifying the opposition, turning any debate on their policy into an opportunity to divide us. On that front, they succeeded. I believe we have never been so divided as a country. The Liberal government made Canada more divided than any government since Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Thanks to the Liberals, another unity crisis is upon us. Mark Carney now has a choice. He has been given an opportunity to align ourselves last fall. Our national campaign was not optimal. We need to fully analyze why we have lost a fourth consecutive election. We cannot repeat the same strategies and messages over and over, hoping that Canadians will finally see the light. We need a fresh approach. And make no mistake, Canada needs a united Conservative Party that is ready and willing to form government. We don't need to go back very far to see what happens when right-of-centre forces are divided. Canada turns into a one-party state, and the Conservative Party cannot become only a refuge for disgruntled people who feel abandoned by the federal government. This, friends, is a dead end. As I said, we need to bring fresh ideas with a positive message to Canadians. We need to build a solid team of men and women coming from different backgrounds and show that we are ready to form the government. And the party must be willing to fight in all regions, carry its messages to all demographics and all socioeconomic or ethnic backgrounds. Now, coming back to the Senate. For 16 years, I was a proud member of the Senate Conservative Caucus. I want to salute the contribution of my fellow Conservative senators, past and present. We did, over the last 16 years, a lot of great things. I am privileged to count so many of you as friends, and I will be rooting for you from the sidelines. It was an honor to be twice elected the leader of our Conservative Senate Caucus, and I had a great team with me. And I want to thank in particular my deputy leader, Yana Martin, my friend, our whip, Judith Seidman, our caucus chair, Rosemary Poirier, and deputy whip, Leo Housakis. I want to thank all of my fellow caucus members, those here, those not. Thank you for your support. I want to thank all of my staff. We all know, every one of us here knows we could never accomplish anything without our staff. My Chief of Staff, Jean-Martin Massé, been a great friend, a great advisor. Corinne Leroux, Communications Director, trying her utmost to keep me out of trouble. And any trouble I got to in were not a result of hers. Lorenzo Grandini, my Executive Director, working tirelessly in my office. Craig Dockstetter, Jordan Amaran, and Jeff Poirier, my policy advisors and speechwriters. And I want you all to know that any of the toxic speeches I have read, I did not write. That is what you hire good speechwriters for. And I thank them for that. Karen Adams, I have been asked, how do you come up with all those questions? Karen Adams spends her life in front of a screen researching and bringing us questions, and has done a marvelous job of that, and I thank her for that. Louise Touche, who has done the translating, and so often that we needed something translated in a hurry, and she did it. Connie Punn, doing clippings and research. And of course, Karma McGregor, who has shared her duties between my office and the whip's office. And all of you who have been working in security and bus drivers and so on, you have been the recipients of Karma's generous food baskets that she brings, and why she always orders more food than we could ever eat at one of our parties so that she has enough left over for those of you out there that are working for us. I have some past staff here who I want to thank as well, who worked with me for quite some time. Natalie Fletcher, who was a deputy chief of staff for a number of years, has been here almost as long as I have, retired a year ago. Jennifer Harnden, who was my policy advisor, and took on the much more admirable, honorable position of a mother and left for that reason. Sarah Fisher, lifelong friend that worked so hard in my office and now in the OLO. I thank her. Roy Rempel, the only one of the group that originally from Manitoba. Roy and I met many years ago in a nomination race in Manitoba, and Roy has worked in my office and has done a great job in research. I want to thank all of them, and I would ask you to give them a round of applause. And then, of course, what can we say? Again, this place wouldn't function without so many people that we have here today. First of all, I thank Julie and the Speaker's office for helping us organize. I thank the Speaker and her complete office for allowing me the opportunity to do this. Of course, the Clerk of the Senate and the Clerk of Parliament's in office, Shaila Anwar, the Usher of the Black Rod, Greg Peters, all the pages. We just have a great group of pages, and I thank them every day with the professionalism that they conduct themselves. Our entire corporate sector, led by Pascal Legault, Finance Department, Pierre Lancois, Properties and Services, led by José Lebel, our IT department by David Vatcher, the legal sector by Catherine Baudin, Legislative Services, my friend Jerry Lafreniere. Jerry Lafreniere and I don't go back that far, but his dad and I do. His dad was my doctor. And I think some of my sore necks are as a result of hockey games that him and I played against when we were probably 18, 20 years old. Committees, of course, Mary Ev, in charge of all of the clerks and the analysts. Chamber Operations and Procedure Office, Till Hyde. Communications, Broadcasting and Interpretation, Melissa Leclerc. Corporate Security, Julie Lacroix. Parliamentary Exchange and Protocol. Human Resources, Tony Francis. The Library of Parliament, of course. Parliamentary Protective Services. Rick, where's Rick? Santa Claus, are you here? There he, all right. I'll tell you, for those of us who are here regular, if ever there is the epitome of somebody who takes pride in a job, I have never seen the like. When I come in, it doesn't matter what time of the day I'm here, he's always here ahead of me. And you can see your face in the floor, showing that every job is so important. Our mail delivery services. And of course, we have bus drivers here today. I thank them for the work they do. They drive so many of you around. I haven't, since I've been the leader, used their services as much because I'm staying across the street, but I have used them over the past, and they go out of their way. Our locksmiths that help take care of us, our food services people, and everyone who is involved in making this institution function on a daily basis. Thank you very much. And now let me get to the most difficult part, of my speech, I want to take a few moments to elaborate on my family. My father has left us. He was here 16 years ago. I was fortunate enough to have him by my side when I was appointed as senator. He's gone. I hope he is as proud of his son now as he was on the day of my swearing in. My mother at 97 will be watching my speech. I'm sure she's not doing it live, but will watch my speech. And I thank Mom for her support. I think I see more of myself in Thomas than in the others. And then, of course, the person that none of this would have been possible without. My very, very long-suffering wife, Betty. Married at the age of 17 to an immature young man of 18 in 1968, Betty has been my rock. She has kept our family in line when none of us were cooperative. She sacrificed so many of her dreams and aspirations for us. And even today, she takes care of me. She bakes and sews and mends for all of us. She loves and encourages all of us. And most importantly, she prays regularly for me, for our children and our grandchildren. Betty is also the caregiver for my 97-year-old mother. Truth be told, Betty is not only my life partner, but she is also my favorite golf partner. She lets me beat her. I eagerly look forward to playing more golf this summer. I would be nothing without her. I am humbled and forever grateful that she kept our family. Betty, I will forever love you. Now I am winding down, folks. I don't think it will surprise any of you to hear me say that I am someone who carries a deep faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. I have certainly not always lived up to the standards that Christ set out for us by his words and his example. But I strive to do so out of a thankful heart and for all that he has done for me. Some of you will understand that Christianity is not simply a belief system, but a profound awareness of the goodness of God that changes you and makes you want to be a better representation of that goodness. These convictions have shaped my values, guided me throughout my political career, and carried me through some difficult times. And while being a person of faith is not as popular as it once was in Canada, I want to dwell here just for a few moments to underscore something. Canada is a nation which was founded on the principle of religious freedoms. My own Mennonite ancestors came here fleeing religious persecution, just as many others did. That's part of our Canadian story. That's why I find it deeply ironic and troubling that our Liberal government has time and again sought to marginalize people of faith. It began even before they formed government, when they declared that pro-life Canadians are not welcome in the Liberal Party. And once in office, they wasted no time in shuttering the office of the religious freedoms, denying Christian organizations access to Canada Summer Jobs programs, erasing any link between gender and biological sex, criminalizing certain expressions of biblical teaching, and targeting pregnancy care centers by threatening their charitable status. The list goes on and on. Let me be clear. I do not believe that Canada should be a theocracy. I am not suggesting that our laws should force non-Christians to act like Christians, but I do find it deeply concerning in this government's refusal to acknowledge the profound influence that Judeo-Christian values have had in shaping the very foundations of the society we all cherish. And while I don't want to dwell too long on this point, I do feel it's important, especially in this moment, to pause and reflect just how much of what we treasure in Western society has roots in biblical thought. Often we forget where these values come from. Allow me to give just a few examples. 1, the equal worth of every person. The belief that every individual matters equally, regardless of status, race, or background, flows from the biblical conviction that all people are made in the image of God. Human rights and justice. Our modern-based legal frameworks reflect ancient biblical calls to defend the weak, constrain the powerful, and seek justice with mercy. Charity and compassion. The Western commitment to caring for the poor, the sick, and the marginalized is built on the command to love your neighbor and care for the widow and the orphan. 4th, individual responsibility and conscience. Our democratic assumption that each person should follow their conscience is rooted in the biblical view of moral accountability before God. 5, moral order and rule of law. The conviction that no one is above the law and that justice is grounded in objective morality has long-standing roots in legal thought. If you are skeptical about this and wonder if I am not just conflating one thing with the other, I encourage you to look into it. The impact of Judeo-Christian heritage on Canadian Western values has been clearly documented and is undeniable if we are being intellectually honest. In fact, these are just a few of the widely accepted Canadian values which stem directly from our Judeo-Christian heritage. I do not want to underscore, however, that none of these values were imposed. They emerged over centuries, through much struggle, reflection, and imperfect effort. But they have endured because they work. They are embedded in the foundations of our society because they reflect truths that resonate deeply within the human soul. It is foolish to ignore them, or worse, to attempt to erase their roots. They are the bedrock of a healthy, democratic society. For me personally, the most important principle I have fought to defend is the sanctity of human life. There is nothing more sacred than the life of a human being, and that's why I've found some recent debates in the country so deeply troubling. What's even more concerning is that today, the Liberal government and the broader cancel cultural movement don't even want us to have these debates. They've decided that the answer to society's problems is to stamp out any view that does not line up with their own by silencing dissent, shaming conscience, and redefining compassion to exclude those who think differently. This is a shame, and this is dangerous. True democracy depends on dialogue. It requires the freedom to wrestle with difficult questions, not in echo chambers, but with courage and conviction and mutual respect. That is why I have tried to do throughout my time as a senator. Let me also be clear about this. While I have never shied away from promoting what I believe are right and just values, I have always accepted that others may hold different views. That, to me, is the essence of public service in a free society. It stands in sharp contrast to what we have witnessed in recent years, where those who preach tolerance are often the least willing to practice it. We live in a time when it's not enough to disagree with someone. You must denounce them. You must silence them. You must erase them. That's not tolerance, friends. That's authoritarianism dressed up in moral language. I may hold my values strongly, but I do not believe in imposing them by force. That, I believe, is also part of what it means to be a true Christian. Well, I may deeply believe in truth. I also believe in love, grace, and the inherent dignity of every person, whether they share my beliefs or not. We can debate, we can argue, but at the end of the day, we are all made in the image of God and are worthy of respect. That's a truth parliamentarians of all people need to remember. The average citizen has no power to impose their views, but as a collective body, we do. And that's why we must be doubly careful not to misuse that power in the name of a so-called public good that tramples upon the individual conscience. I never agreed with Pierre Elliott Trudeau on very much, but I did agree with him on this. The state has no business in the bedrooms of the nation. And yet, today, we see the government inserting itself not just into our bedrooms, but into our classrooms, into social media, into our churches, personal health choices, and even conscience itself. This must stop, and it's up to those who remain to carry the torch in this place of power to ensure that it does. Friends, today I speak for the very last time in this chamber. Never again will my voice be heard in this place. Never again will I rise to my feet to make an intervention, a speech, a point of order, a question, or indeed a motion to adjourn the Senate. I will do that momentarily. I will no longer be here to challenge the government or defend a policy. That part of my journey is coming to an end. And although this causes me a fair bit of emotion, I recognize that this is the way of life. We all have a road that we walk, and on that journey, everything is just for a season and eventually comes to an end. As my time as a senator draws to a close, my hope and prayer is that I have been faithful in the eyes of God, in the eyes of my family, and in the eyes of my colleagues, to faithfully fulfill the duty I swore to uphold when I first entered this chamber. I am forever grateful for the opportunity I have had to serve my country in this capacity, and for the support, love, and friendship of all those I mentioned earlier. All of you in this room today, and many more who could not be with us, including Canadians who have been following me from home and on social media, I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. May God bless all of you, and may God bless Canada. Thank you.
We were just messing. You can use my phone.
If you buy us some Zen.
What is Zen?
You don't know what Zen is?
You know what? It doesn't even matter. Where do I buy Zen?
There's a 7-Eleven on the corner. Go buy us some Zen and I'll let you use my phone.
Okay.
Buy some Zen and you use me.
Do you guys sell Zen?
You got ID?
ID. What is there, like nicotine in this?
What, do you not know what Zen is?
I know what Zen is, okay? You know what? Here. Actually, can I also use your phone?
Yo, there she is. Where's our Zen, Boomer?
Yeah, Karen, we had a deal.
Oh, you mean this? By the way, 7-Eleven has a phone, so I don't need yours anymore. But I did get yours in. Oh, ooh, let's see what all the hype's about. Oh, cool kids. Oh, yeah. Sheesh, yeah. Skirt, ice in my veins. Oh, cool TikToking, yeah. Who's old now? Oh my God, I'm gonna...
Why don't you tell them, baby? Hey, gang, this is my cat, Sweepy. She's a gem. Like, I love this cat. I've got another one. Her name's Honeypot. She's sweet, too. She never comes up here, though. Very, very rarely. Come here, Honeypot. Come here, little one. But this is my big baby. She's always up on the keyboard and around the monitors and messing with the mice. I know. She is gorgeous.
How many kids did you molest with Jeffrey Epstein?